It's possible Obama won North Carolina in 2008 because of non-citizens voting illegally. Where did that come from? Good luck looking it up. So anyway, that was caused by Jesse Richmond and David Ernst doing a paper saying non-citizens vote in the federal elections and determine the outcome of Senate races. What is this based on? Data on non-citizens. Notice how that's spelled and said, and the expression, how it's framed, and what you're thinking. Drawn from a nationwide survey. And 339 people responded, or they only paid attention to 339 respondents. And only 38 of them said they voted at all, and only 5 were able to be verified. So if we apply this 1.5% confirmation rate, because I'm not willing to give them the benefit of the doubt using a tiny survey sample, or they threw out anything contradictory, we're going to do 1.5%. What was the number of illegal aliens in North Carolina? For some reason, this nationwide study of 339 people should apply to North Carolina. Okay. If you're a statistician, stop pounding the wall. Now, here we go. At the time in North Carolina, there were around 487,000 illegal aliens, according to estimates done by various people, groups, whatever, trying to figure out the number. And they double-check each other as best they can. That's a good estimate, right? I mean, that's a lot of people. That would mean there were around 7,000 non-citizens voting in 2008 that could have influenced the election towards Obama. This presumes that none of them would vote against Obama. This presumes that none of these people were under age 18, because this is the number of people. That includes children. But let's assume they're all grown-ups for some blasted reason. He only won by 14,000 votes. So you'd have to double the number. You'd have to, again, I'm repeating myself, you'd have to assume none of them were children for some reason. And you'd have to assume none of them were Republicans. And this is all based on 2 guys supposedly doing a nationwide survey and only finding 339 illegal aliens somehow, when the state they're talking about, the state that is being discussed here, found 487,000 of them. Maybe they didn't want to use that data because they also asked them, have you attempted to vote, or were you allowed to vote in some local election? It's against federal law for any non-resident. That means Sweden people. That means people from France can't vote here in a national election. They can't vote in federal elections. But there's no law that says you can't do it in state or county or town, except that every single state, county, and town forbids non-residents from voting, for the obvious reason that they're not American citizens and they're not allowed to vote. On a federal level, if you break this law, you suffer the following: a fine, prison time, then you're deported, and you're forbidden from coming back into the United States. And if you make anything other than that happen, you're declared an enemy combatant and maybe waterboarded for all we know, but you're not allowed to come back in. Why would someone risk all that when their main purpose in coming to the United States is having a job to do and make money? Let's ask some other people. North Carolina State Board of Elections, voter fraud, 35,000 people double voted. This is actually a separate claim. For some reason, North Carolina is the mean, because that came up in search engine results. So let's look at this up. 2 states people voted in at the same time. Think about North Carolina and people's names. Next. During the election of 2012 versus, let's compare it to something else, coincidentally. They reported only 23 allegations from people within their own state of voting or registering to vote when someone is an illegal alien. That's the accusations. That's not conviction rate. That's not after investigating it. That information isn't available right now. You might be able to ask them. They may have it available now. They have available information after that point. But that was for 2008. Doing so would put them in jeopardy of being deported, jailed, fined, and excluded, or declared a terrorist, because that's a form of corrupting the system of the United States and affecting a vote. Here we go. And it has almost no influence, because per person you don't have much influence. I wonder what position you'd have to be in to have enough influence to actually affect a vote. Keep that in mind. And by the way, this is including foreign nationals from other countries. And also it includes people who were, at the time, immigrating to the United States and thought they could vote. Language barrier. Oh, by the way, yeah, the 23... Yeah. You're not allowed to vote until you're fully a citizen. You don't get the right to vote yet. Blame Canada. A federal judge ruled that North Carolina allowed 3 counties to illegally purge votes from American citizens from the rolls and ordered the voters be allowed to cast ballots. Want to make a bet they weren't actually just Mexicans or Latino? Federal judges described North Carolina's process for challenging the voters at the polls as insane. Robert John Doherty claimed to have voted multiple times and under many different names on Facebook posts as a joke. This outraged everybody on the internet, and the North Carolina State Board of Elections investigated and cleared him of voter fraud. That's it for North Carolina. Really. Let's talk about the voter intimidation. You see, remember, the whole point of this is you have to evict a lot of voters. If it's just one person doing it, or if you arrange to have 6 or 7 people illegally vote, wouldn't it be more effective to have an effect on all the people who are already allowed to vote somehow and stop them? Oh, we can't go there, can we? The Department of Justice issued a statement, coincidentally, saying that voter intimidation is against federal law, because it is. That can actually cause you to go to prison too, just like voting. But voter intimidation affects 3 or 4 votes, at least, doesn't it? Wouldn't that be more effective? And that included false claims of voter fraud, and they said that you can make claims of voter fraud. That's not illegal. It's just that you're not allowed to make them frivolously to harass people. See also claims on the internet that people post where they're doxing you and they lie about what happened to you and what you do. Remember that van full of illegal voters? That was a hoax site, and it was recycled from a photograph about some other damn thing. Do you remember the videos representing evidence of election fraud? You might want to look up where they were from. They weren't from the United States, and they weren't Hillary voters. They were Russians. It was Russian voter fraud, which is notorious a problem. Voters are more likely to be struck by lightning than commit in-person voter fraud. What group of people would be able to systematically, one person, making a difference? I'll get to that at the end. 2013, October, Democrat Governor Jerry Brown signed AB60, Assembly Bill 60, into law to grant driver's licenses to undocumented people, thereby making them documented aliens. 2015, January, took effect. October of the same year, the new Motor Voter Act automatically registered citizens to vote when obtaining a driver's license, and it was passed. February, California officials said that after a year of this, more than 600,000 undocumented people were granted licenses and were now documented, so they're not undocumented. Under the law, by late 2017, they estimated 1.4 million people would get their licenses, and as the 2015 Motor Voter Act only applies to eligible U.S. citizens who can prove it, undocumented people in California can only obtain a driver's license. Now, I'm going to bring up something coinkydinky that people discovered as a tactic. California Latino Americans, these are Americans that are, immigrants, mostly vote Democratic. Duh. Many cases they were renewing licenses or, they were new applicants because they just turned 18 or whatever, just, going in for their driver's license. These are American citizens, sometimes second and third generation. Their participation rate in the previous elections had hovered around 15%. Someone noticed that they were the lowest ethnic group participation rate, just above Asians. So the meme started that, oh, they're all illegal aliens. let's discuss. When you show up at the Department of Motor Vehicles office to obtain a driver's license, the usual method for doing this is that you have to have a previous ID, just an ID of some sort, or you might bring a birth certificate, no Obama jokes, or a passport. You were encouraged to bring any form of ID, no matter what you were trying to get. Remember, this ended up documenting a bunch of undocumented aliens. Remember this. Remember this sneaky, sneaky damn thing that was done. It's a different sneaky. Since the vast majority of the time people are showing up with a birth certificate or a passport because they're not really a citizen, they're showing what citizenship they have. This also applied to people from Sweden if they wanted to get a local license. You can do that. You just have to show a license from another country. But, whatever. Let's just discuss this. So this is what the DMV would do. Eligible citizens were then given the option to opt out. Non-eligible non-citizens would not be opted in and would be lined out. If the person does not opt out, when confirmed to being an American citizen, the DMV personnel would electronically transfer their data to the Secretary of State office to do the work. Rather than making election officials enter data on hand, on paper, and having someone simply check mark a box saying that I'm doing this under penalty of perjury. Because they're sitting there, you're at the DMV. There is no excuse to go in for the DMV to get a driver's license without having some proof that you're a citizen of some place. By definition, you'd never get a license. Unless you declared you weren't an American citizen, which means they wouldn't check mark the box. See also that DMV personnel are subject to extraordinarily unpleasant treatment, because they then participated as effectively a federal checkmarking person in voter fraud, which means they have potentials of going to prison and fines, and for all I know, being deported and waterboarded. And fired from a cushy job. Forgive me if you're a DMV worker and don't agree with me, but you get better treatment than a lot of us. So let's review. A federal judge plans to issue an order barring intimidation in Ohio from polling places because it happened. Kansas City Court ordered the state to stop using two-tiered voting system that effectively prevented voters from casting any ballots in state or local elections because of the way it was arranged, but only if they were in certain areas. Federal law does not prohibit non-citizens from voting in a state or local election if it's allowed. Nationalism after the War of 1812, however, crushed any option of that. Since 1926, no state has permitted any non-citizens, that includes people from France, to vote in our national, state, or local elections of any kind. The Fed doesn't do it, the states do. So a state like California could actually provide this, but they'd have to change their rules because the rules explicitly forbid it. Not just have it hoodwinked in as a hack or some backdoor that some of you actually believe would work. And again, anybody allowing that to happen would be assumed to have broken the law on purpose and thrown in prison immediately if they worked at the DMV and allowed this. After 1996, non-citizens get deported, imprisoned, and fined. Not in that order. And then denied admission in the United States, whatever country they come from. So I'm going to go up into Canada, work at a computer job, illegally, because it's really easy to go through the border from Canada to the United States. I'm working illegally, but I'm transferring by having my identity. I decide I'm going to vote. You might want to look up their laws on this. They're a little psycho. They're really polite, but they throw you in the jail. I'm going to risk jail time or never being able to earn a living there, and technically having a felony that it would actually cross because it's an international crime at that point, because I'm from a different country and may be assumed to be a foreigner that's doing some evildoer stuff. I'm going to do that, or just do my job and avoid the problem. Now let's talk about the people who actually systematically cause voter fraud, or more actually, election rigging. I said elections are rigged, not voter fraud. People gerrymander the districts so that they will make sure that their party will win. People show up at voting places claiming to be police officers illegally, running people off. Those are examples. These weren't. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that.